The American healthcare system was rocked to its core on March 31, 2025. Dr. Peter Marks, the long-standing director of the FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, announced his resignation. This was no ordinary departure. Dr. Marks, a figure synonymous with vaccine safety and efficacy, was leaving amidst a storm of controversy. His departure date, April 5, 2025, loomed large. Dr. Marks's resignation letter was a scathing indictment of the current political climate. He pointed to profound disagreements with the newly appointed HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. The letter hinted at deep ideological divides, particularly concerning vaccine safety and transparency. It was a stark warning. The nation's public health apparatus was teetering on the precipice of a crisis. The news sent shockwaves through the medical community and beyond. Dr. Marks, a steady hand during some of the most turbulent times in recent history, was a beacon of trust. His departure raised serious questions about the future of the FDA. This was not just about vaccines, it was about the very foundation of trust in public health. The implications of Dr. Marks's decision were far-reaching. His departure threatened to erode public confidence in the FDA. His resignation letter, a public airing of grievances, was a clear sign that something was deeply wrong at the highest levels of government. It was a sign that the delicate balance between science and politics had been dangerously disrupted. Dr. Peter Marks was more than just a bureaucrat. He was a guardian of public health. His tenure at the FDA, beginning in 2016, was marked by a steadfast commitment to scientific rigor. He understood that the FDA's decisions, particularly those related to vaccine approvals, had life-or-death consequences. Dr. Marks's leadership was especially critical during the COVID-19 pandemic. His calm demeanor and commitment to scientific evidence were a source of comfort. Under his watch, the FDA navigated vaccine development with speed and efficiency. His legacy is one of integrity, scientific rigor, and commitment to public health. The COVID-19 pandemic was a trial by fire for public health institutions around the world. The FDA, under immense pressure to deliver safe and effective vaccines in record time, faced a test unlike any it had encountered before. At the heart of this Herculean effort was Dr. Peter Marks. Dr. Marks knew that the stakes had never been higher. The virus was spreading rapidly, claiming lives and crippling economies. The world was looking for a way out, and vaccines represented the best hope for a return to normalcy. He recognized the weight of expectation on his shoulders and the immense responsibility he carried. Despite the unprecedented pressure, Dr. Marks never wavered in his commitment to scientific integrity. He insisted on robust clinical trials, refusing to bow to political pressure or public impatience. He understood that even the slightest misstep could have catastrophic consequences, eroding public trust and jeopardizing the entire vaccination effort. Dr. Marks's leadership was instrumental in ensuring that the COVID-19 vaccines met the highest standards of safety and efficacy. He understood that public confidence in the vaccines was paramount, and he worked tirelessly to communicate the science clearly and transparently. His efforts were not just about ending a pandemic, they were about preserving the very fabric of trust in public health. The resignation of Dr. Peter Marks was the culmination of tremors shaking the FDA for months. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s arrival as HHS Secretary signaled a dramatic shift. Kennedy, a known vaccine skeptic, brought an agenda prioritizing ideology over science. The clash between Marks and Kennedy was about fundamentally different worldviews. Marks, an advocate for evidence-based decision-making, clashed with Kennedy's populist approach. Section 5. Kennedy's controversial reign. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s appointment as HHS Secretary was met with a mixture of disbelief and trepidation by the public health community. A figure known more for his controversial views on vaccines than his policy expertise, Kennedy represented a radical departure from the norm. His arrival in Washington, D.C. heralded an era of uncertainty and apprehension. Kennedy, a scion of one of America's most prominent political dynasties, was no stranger to controversy. His views on vaccines, often espoused with an almost evangelical zeal, had alienated him from mainstream science and earned him the ire of public health experts. His appointment, a triumph of political maneuvering over qualification, was seen by many as a dangerous gamble with public health. True to form, Kennedy wasted no time in shaking up the status quo. he embarked on a whirlwind tour of agencies under his purview, leaving a trail of bewildered staff and overturned policies in his wake. His disdain for expertise was palpable, preferring to rely on a close circle of advisors who shared his distrust of established science. One of Kennedy's most contentious moves was the creation of a new vaccine safety commission stacked with known vaccine skeptics and lacking any credible scientific representation. Section 6. Biotech reels from uncertainty. The aftershocks of Dr. Marks's resignation were felt far beyond the walls of the FDA. The biotech industry, already navigating the complex and often unpredictable world of drug development, was suddenly confronted with a new level of uncertainty. Dr. Marks, a known entity with a reputation for fairness and predictability, was being replaced by an unknown quantity in the form of Kennedy's as yet unnamed successor. The initial reaction from the biotech sector was one of shock and disbelief. Stock prices of major pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies tumbled in the days following the announcement, reflecting investor anxiety over the future of drug approvals. The departure of a figure as respected and influential as Dr. Marks had shaken the industry's confidence in the regulatory process. The uncertainty stemmed not only from Kennedy's controversial views, but also from his lack of experience in the complex world of drug development and regulation. The biotech industry thrives on stability and predictability, and Kennedy's unpredictable nature had injected a new element of risk into an already high-stakes game. The potential for delays in drug approvals was a major concern for biotech companies, many of whom were heavily invested in developing groundbreaking new therapies. The industry feared that Kennedy's skepticism of science could translate into a more risk-averse FDA, potentially delaying or even derailing the approval of promising new treatments. Section 7. Bio's Dire Predictions. The Biotechnology Innovation Organization, the leading advocacy group for the biotech industry, was quick to sound the alarm about the potential fallout from Dr. Marks's departure. They warned of a chilling effect on innovation, predicting that the uncertainty surrounding the FDA's future direction could deter investment in research and development. In a strongly worded statement, BIO expressed deep concern about the politicization of the FDA, arguing that it threatened to undermine the agency's credibility and erode public trust in the safety and efficacy of new medicines and vaccines. They called on the Biden administration to appoint a successor to Dr. Marks with a strong scientific background and a commitment to evidence-based decision-making. BIO's concerns extended beyond the immediate impact on drug approvals. They warned that a weakened FDA, beholden to political whims rather than scientific evidence, could have far-reaching consequences for global health. The United States, long considered the gold standard for drug regulation, risked losing its standing on the world stage, potentially hindering access to life-saving medications for millions. The organization called for a bipartisan effort to protect the FDA's independence and ensure that its decisions continue to be based on sound science, not political expediency. They argued that the stakes were simply too high to allow ideology to trump evidence in matters of public health. Section 8. Science on Trial. Dr. Marks's resignation laid bare a disturbing truth. Science, once considered the bedrock of public policy, was increasingly being challenged by misinformation, distrust, and political opportunism. His departure was a stark reminder that scientific integrity, even within institutions as respected as the FDA, was not inviolable. The rise of social media had created an environment where misinformation could spread like wildfire, often faster and farther than the truth. Conspiracy theories fueled by distrust of authority and a lack of scientific literacy had gained traction among certain segments of the population, eroding trust in vaccines and other public health measures. The COVID-19 pandemic had only exacerbated these trends, becoming a fertile ground for misinformation and conspiracy theories. The virus, shrouded in uncertainty and fear, became an easy target for those seeking to exploit public anxiety for their own gain. Misleading information about the virus, its origins and potential treatments spread rapidly online, often promoted by politicians and media personalities seeking to advance their own agendas. The consequences of this erosion of trust in science were far-reaching. Section 9. The Fragile Future of Public Health. The resignation of Dr. Peter Marks was not just about one man's decision to step down, it was a canary in the coal mine, a warning sign of a system under immense strain. It exposed the fragility of the institutions we rely on to safeguard public health and the growing threat posed by the politicization of science. The erosion of trust in science, fueled by misinformation and political opportunism, had created a dangerous environment where facts were easily dismissed and expertise was devalued. This distrust had real-world consequences, undermining public health efforts and putting lives at risk. The challenge facing us was not simply to restore trust in science, but to rebuild the very foundations on which that trust is built. This required a multi-pronged approach, encompassing education, communication, and a renewed commitment to evidence-based decision-making at all levels of government. We needed to equip people with the tools to critically evaluate information, to distinguish between fact and fiction, and to understand the scientific process. The future of public health depended on our ability to bridge the divide between science and society, to restore trust in expertise, and to ensure that decisions affecting the health and well-being of our communities were grounded in evidence, not ideology.